Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Mary Jane Burke, and I'm the Marin County Superintendent of Schools. Today, there's going to be a quick meeting that we're holding here that is intended to provide information about how to stand up or start a small cohort. And so here in the county in Marin, we have started some pilot programs to get information about steps that we need to take in order to be ready to go for our summer school and then into the fall. And so the programs we've been operating are special ed, middle school, preschool, elementary, and then also some alternative ed programs. But today we're gonna just focus on the steps we took and hopefully answer any questions. This will be a total of a half hour. Everything that you're going to see and hear this will be recorded, and in addition, any written information we have will be posted within 24 hours. So I know that these are challenging times for everyone, and in advance, thank you for all you're doing on behalf of the children of others. It's very much appreciated. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to my partner, Mike Grant, who will be able to provide you a quick presentation. Thanks, Mike.
Great, thank you, Mary Jane. And good morning, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about the work we've been doing over the past few months, working with cohorts, small cohorts of kids to support their needs and the needs of the families and communities. So our goal is to share MCOE's strategic plan for our office, for our schools and student programs, hopefully to serve as a model that other schools and districts can use to meet their unique needs. So a little bit about the process, the parameters that we've been working under. We're implementing this in very sequential, cautious, and deliberate phases, all consistent with public health and CDC protocols and recommendations. We know that COVID-19 is with us. It's here in our world, it's in our environment, and we have to figure out a way to start opening up our businesses, our schools, and our communities within the confines of this new reality. We also know that there are proven strategies to accomplish this in a way that lowers the risk of transmission, of exposure, and if there is transmission or exposure, of containing it and helping public health to track and trace it. So part of our process is we identified our stakeholders. This is a couple of months ago now. We established a task force, our Rethinking Schools task force. We did our best to research the best practices and protocols that are being updated by all of our guiding agencies. We've, in partnership with a great number of our community organizations in Marin County, for the past 10 weeks, we've been supporting the pop-up childcare centers that began for frontline healthcare workers and then was expanded to first responders and disaster services workers, and now it's operating to support the needs of all essential workers in the county. And it was based on a model that we used in the 2019 wildfires at our offices here. So we've been creating procedures and protocols, documents, design, trainings, and then presented those to focus groups in our office and among our staff. We've gotten feedback, created FAQs, and then we've shared that information, and we're updating them as we go. Right now, we're also transitioning back to our office here at MCOE, and we just started piloting a handful of alternative education and special education programs, which we'll talk more about. All along the way, we've been trying to identify and secure the required essential protective equipment for the school and office setting. Most importantly, perhaps, is our work with public health. We're in lockstep with them. I know Mary Jane would say that Dr. Matt Willis, our public health officer, is on her speed dial, as is his deputy, Dr. Lisa Santora, and we are in virtually daily communication with them. Everything is changing as we gain information. We're trying to update our procedures and protocols as we gain more information. So phase one has been to reopen this office. We've been open. The superintendent's office has been here every day. critical functions in our business office and IT and maintenance and operations has been operating since the shelter in place started in mid-March. But over the past 3 weeks, we've been phasing in other workers who've been working remotely. Today's the third in a series of 4 waves. By next June, our entire staff will be back in the office here at MCOE. And then we're also phasing in spring pilot programs. Last week, 7 cohorts opened between our special education and alternative education programs. We're targeting opening 1 more cohort this week if all goes as planned. And then of course, we're looking to phase 2 and 3, which is our extended school year program, and somehow, some way to offer site-based classroom instruction in the fall of 2021. So today, we are going to focus in on the cohort structure, what it looks like. There is so much that we don't know about COVID-19 and what lies ahead in the future.
Let's connect it.
So let's see, can we have everyone mute their microphones, please? Thank you. It looks, so there is so much that we don't know about COVID-19 that can be paralyzing. And so what we've really tried to focus in is what we do know and what we can do. So we do know that the needs of some students simply are not being met with remote learning. We also know that 85% or more of parents that we have surveyed are ready to begin an effort to return to site-based instructions. The parents are in. We also know that public health is our guide and our light, and there are champions, and their focus is on how we can do this with the priority on the health and safety of students and staff, given that COVID-19 is here. We also know that the cohort structure works. Today is our 48th day of operation of the pop-up childcare programs. In the first 47 days through last Friday, 2,581 children days have been successfully facilitated. And there's been 494 cohort days successfully operated. So that's a good start. It works. We know that the cohort size right now is 12 students, and that's what we've got to work with. We also know that kids don't understand intuitively physical distancing, and no matter, we certainly want to role model it and teach it, but the cohort in itself is the physical distancing, like your family at home, that is the physical distancing. We also know that medically fragile students need to be carefully supported and may not be able to participate. This is really a doctor's decision. It's not so much up to us or even the parents. We believe at this point it would need to have a doctor's approval of medically fragile students to participate. We also know that remote or hybrid learning will certainly continue to be a part of the plan moving forward as far as we can see. We know that some parents will choose not to participate and may have the means not to participate. That may not be an option for many families. We also know that some staff, due to underlying medical conditions, either of themselves or loved ones, or for some other reason, may not be able to participate in the site-based instruction. Starting small is good. We're going to talk more about that. It's going to look different than we could have ever imagined just a few months ago, and that's part of what we need to learn how to structure. We know that student transportation is a central challenge. I'm going to talk more about how we've addressed that to date. And we know that there's still a lot that we don't know, and we'll learn every day, every week as we learn more about this virus and about how to most effectively contain it and stop its transmission and spread. It all starts with a small step, and from our experience, we know that just opening 1 cohort is a great step that works. So before we can really address the needs of kids, we need to understand and recognize that there is fear and anxiety about all that we don't know, and among teachers, staff, parents, administrators, and just take the time to address that and understand it. And take the time really just to talk and plan and discuss, address as best we can questions and concerns. Some of it has to come from public health, but we also need to just take the time to talk to our teams. We know that it's going to look different. In some ways it's just school, but visually, experientially, it is different than we have ever seen before. And some of the things that we know will look different is that just the act of dropping your student off at school. We have a curbside drop off at all of our pop-up childcares and spring pilot programs. There's a health screening of staff and students upon entry. We're doing temperature checks at this point. There's a question about if that will continue to be the case moving forward, but right now everybody gets a temperature check. If there's multiple cohorts and depending on the physical geography of the campus, it may be beneficial to have staggered start times, even just by a little, to help reduce the intermixing of cohorts and the flow into the school. There will be lots of hand washings. We were talking about this today, that we have, we know that right when students come in, staff come in, the first thing we do is wash our hands for 20 seconds. We do it before and after meals, before and after playtime, but maybe we should have it even more structured where we do it every hour on the hour. We also know that staff and kids over 12, students over 12 will be wearing face coverings. That's new. And that there really are no visitors or volunteers that we can expect. That is a change. There won't be recesses, we know it, or assemblies or large group gatherings. There's a coordinated scheduling of outdoor recreation times to help minimize or eliminate the mixing of cohorts. And the classrooms have really been streamlined. We have some pictures to show to support physical distancing and also cleaning and sanitation of surfaces. And then we have these health and safety stations in the classrooms, in the restrooms, and at the check-in. So getting ready for the first day, for both the spring pilot programs and the emergency pop-up child care centers, we set a target opening date. And in all cases, we've had to be flexible and move that date just to get everyone ready. But when you set the target date, it initiates a series of steps that help get the process going, including a preliminary walkthrough where you just walk through where's the best curbside drop-off, what's the plan, what do we need to do to declutter the classroom and design the classroom, and walk through the restroom and hand washing protocol. Some classrooms have sinks and soap, others you have to use the restrooms to do hand washing. Identify which is the most important essential protective equipment at the different areas at the school site, and then to discuss student transportation options. The outreach to parents has just been a call from a teacher or administrator just to say, hey, look, we're looking at opening up a cohort sometime in the next 4 or 5 days or in the next week. We wanted to see, are you interested, able, and willing to participate? What do you need to get ready for you and your student? And then assigning and delegating roles. The classroom layout, these are just some pictures of Cindy Evans' classroom at San Jose Middle School, which opened last Monday. Her and her team of paraeducators gathered up a bunch of materials and supplies and books and things to move out to help kind of declutter. And our M&O team went over and put those into storage. And then other best practices that have emerged is, individual supplies for students to minimize the number of hands that are touching things. The day before the opening, Melina Boyd on our Rethinking Schools task force has gone out to the site and literally put tape on the ground in 6-foot increments to help spread out the check-in procedure with appropriate physical distancing, set up the check-in table with all the appropriate essential protective equipment, and set up the health and safety kits in the restrooms and classrooms. There's also daily health screening questions that might be a laminated copy or an iPad survey. The cohort tracking in attendance is critical, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We have some samples that we're using for our program so that if there is an illness or symptoms that we can quickly get the critical information to public health. And then, of course, the final outreach to parents is to check in. We're ready to go tomorrow. When students arrive and staff arrive, they do this daily health check-in, and it's basically just 4 questions about the health of themselves and their family members. And again, it can be done on an iPad, so you have a way of documenting the check-in, or in some cases, we just do a check-in sheet and a laminated version of verbally asking these questions. If there's a yes, essentially, to any of these questions, the student or staff member will not be admitted that day. They need to go home and check in with their healthcare provider for any next steps. A soft opening is awesome. The first day that we ran our pop-up childcare programs, we had a total of 3 cohorts started at 3 different sites and a grand total of 11 students. So there was 2 at one site, 3 at another, 6 at another. It was a very comfortable and kind of relieving way to start, and then you can grow it from there. The emotion is high, both at the pop-up child care centers and at our spring pilot programs. The kids have been away from school for a couple months now, and there are tears among the parents, among the kids, and among the staff, and understandably so. But I have to say, in hearing from our teachers, that it has been incredibly positive, inspiring, energizing to have kids. The kids are so excited to see one another and their teachers, and we've gotten really positive feedback. And then, over time, of course, grow the cohort and get it up to 12. But if it's going well, hey, open up another cohort, which is what happened. It has happened at all of our sites. So some questions and challenges, some of the unknowns that lie ahead is the cohort size. Right now it's 12, that's what we're working with. There are questions that we're trying to get from answers from public health on about how specialists, speech and language therapists, IT support, other teachers or support staff who have traditionally gone from class to class, is there a way we can do that and support the prevention of the transmission of COVID-19? Student transportation strategies, really right now it's parent drivers. We're looking at the possibility of staff drivers. And we're working closely with Marin Transit for student, our local transportation providers, to try to understand how we can provide transportation on buses in a cohort structured system. And we also are working with Safe Routes to Schools. They're looking at how they can develop plans to have these things called PED pods, where cohorts of students who live in the same neighborhood can walk or bike together to their schools, and encouraging that as a great option. Classroom space, there's an issue of classroom space. If we have cohorts of 12, there's just not enough space. I do want to just recognize and call out also Sausalito, Marin City, Bayside MLK opened 4 cohorts last week. They're really excited. They have 3 cohorts of 8 and 1 cohort of 2, and it's been extremely positive. Outdoor recreation time needs to be scheduled. There's a question about use of playground equipment and sanitizing in between uses, or just that it's off duty. There's off limits for the time being. And then there's also a question about student face coverings. Right now, students under 12 and under are not required to wear face coverings, and might that change over time? We don't know. So just last week, there was a number of new pieces of information that we're analyzing right now. The CDC came out with some new considerations for school on May 19th. Public Health provided some really very detailed, descriptive orders around exposure and positive cases and household members and specific directions on how to shelter in place most safely if they're ordered to do so. We also are in the process of finalizing some protocols and template letters based on those public health orders to help schools in the event that they do have an exposure or a student or staff member showing symptoms. We're going to be posting, once that's finalized with public health, we'll post that and other resources on our website, including a sample of a cohort tracking document. And there's also, starting next Monday on June 1st, every organization, school, business in the county that is operating is expected to have a COVID-19 site-specific protection plan, which is pretty straightforward. It just basically organizes all the requirements that are now in place. You can get that at Marin Recovers. Additional resources, we've been, the first 2 weeks of operation of the pop-up childcare programs, we literally had daily Zoom or conference call check-ins every day. And then it moved to 3 times a week. Now we're connecting 2 times a week just to do an overall check-in. How's it going? Are there questions, best practices to share? We have a dedicated phone line to my office and a general rapid response at marinschools.org for questions as they come up. We're trying to be very responsive to question, concerns, suggestions, best practices. And we also know that it's incredibly important just to listen to your team through this whole process. And by doing so, you make the program stronger and safer. So on our website, there's a link to the Rethinking Schools pages with all of the information that we're sharing today that we have developed so far. It's available to everyone to use as you see fit. Okay, 21 minutes. I did it, Mary Jane.
That was very good.
I hope I wasn't talking too fast.
No, you were fabulous. Could not have been better. All right. So listen, that means we have about 8 minutes to go through as many questions as we can get to. This is a question: can students within a cohort be closer than 6 feet during recreation time if they are outside? Mike?
Yes, they're family, and so again, we're doing everything we can to practice, teach, model physical distancing. If they're in the same cohort, they're in the same cohort, and they will get within 6 feet of one another. It's to be expected.
Mm-hmm. Can volunteers who live with a student parent, for example, be in classes with their kids and their kids' cohort? Seems like family, same risk. Also, can cohorts be larger if classes are held outside? The answer is no at this point for a parent to join the classroom even as a volunteer. And then the next question is that can cohorts be larger if they're held outside? For now, the answer is no to that as well, and we can draw on the decisions that have just been made about camp. Is there a formula for square footage in a classroom and number possible in a cohort? So just to remind you, hear Mike saying, hey, we are still using the number 12, right? We're not sure what the number will be by the time we open school, what that will be. But the typical classroom, I think someone's done some research and they can hold about, I think 12 to 15 students, but it would depend on the classroom, how much furniture there is. But obviously you want to be able to move the desks so that they are distanced. Oh, yeah. David Fanan, congratulations. You want to say something about the opening of the cohorts at Bayside MLK?
Hi, Mary Jane.
Hi, David.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mike Grant and Trina. We never would have done it without their support. But yeah, it's been incredible. I just want to echo the positivity. The kids are so happy to be back, and the staff is literally smiling from ear to ear every day, feeling really productive and grateful to be back with the kids. We're following these are all the protocols that Mike worked with me on, and we're following everyone to a T. It's going really well. We only have the kids back between 2.5 and 3 hours a day, depending on the grades. So we're not doing full days, but it's so far so good. I do have one question now that I have the floor. Can I ask really quick, Mary Jane?
Sure.
Do you expect there may be an opportunity to mix and match adults with cohorts come the fall, or are you expecting it's going to remain pure cohorts?
Yeah, that's a question that we have for public health. There's a whole list, right, of questions like that, like what's that going to look like? And I think, at this point, right, they're trying to look at the data, figure out where we're going to be at that time. And so obviously the hope is that we will be able to have adults mix cohorts. Obviously, that will be a huge issue at middle school and high school level. It may, though, require an additional level of EPE, right? Essential protective equipment, by way of example, because we know doctors go from one patient to another, but we still don't know whether that will need to happen virtually or not. But we'll continue to, ask the question, and as we get information, but it's definitely squarely on the table. There's a question from the superintendent of Ross to find out, Mike, have we had any drills yet? Earthquake, fire, lockdown drills?
No, but that's a great idea. We're going to get right on that.
It is. Okay, but in an emergency, for the record, forget everything. Get out of the building. Don't worry about social distancing.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Mary Jane, what we've talked about is that the emergency response is exactly the same as it always has been, except for we do our best to practice physical distancing. So when we gather, we keep our cohort separate. That's the response.
Right. Well, someone's asking about what's the protocol if there is a confirmed case. We're working on that right now. So we have a draft of several different communications that would be available in template form. So we'll make sure that those are available. But right now we're in the process of working on those particular issues. We have, in fact, in our pop-up childcare had a situation with a student who was tested positive. So we've been able to work through the steps, the communication, et cetera. So we have some good experience in that area. Question about whether or not a playground could be cordoned off potentially. We would say the answer is yes on that, and how important it is to clean in between. Not sure about the mask. So this is coming up again about what about the mask for kids under younger than 12. It seems that what I think I'm hearing is more and more information about the potential that more children will be actually wearing masks, particularly if we are able to get to larger cohorts. Yeah, substitute teachers. So that's a question. Well, that's where common sense comes in, right? So, in the end, we end up in those situations where you want to have stable cohort. But we, of course, in the pop-up childcare, we had stable cohorts, stable adults. Adult gets sick, we need a sub. And so obviously that there are things that are going to come up where common sense will prevail for sure. Is a teacher part of the cohort of 12? No, the adults are in addition to the students. So 12 students plus the adult. Can public schools legally invite students when the rest must take online? So that's interesting. Can public schools legally invite only certain students back to on-campus school when the rest must take it online? We're not, the answer is that obviously the hope is that everybody gets to come back to school sometime in person and sometime likely in a virtual setting. There will be potentially some situations that will be essentially framed by a physician where they might say a student is unable to attend, in which case we'll develop a virtual model where the student will still be able to attend, but it will look different. What are the chances that the cohort numbers are going to go up? I think the chances are really good. That's my answer. I think I really do. I think it's really good. But for now, it's important that we practice, right, using the cohort numbers we have, particularly the issue of, regardless of the cohort number, the structures will be the same, right? As a cohort, whatever the number is, but that cohort is not going to be roaming the campus as they would have, right? And so I think all of the structures we're putting in place will be good practice for us, but I think it's gonna get a little bit larger, but it's not gonna get larger if we have a huge surge, if there are other challenges related to the data, and that's where public health comes in. Do you use thermometers every day? Yeah, so in our pop-ups, we are We have 1 minute. We are actually checking staff and students every day as they come in. The issue is that at some point in the future, whether or not they're, of all the students that have attended the pop-up, there's been not one time when a student had a temperature, right, when they came in. So, you know, bottom line is we'll have to see whether or not that's an important issue or not. We've decided, because we have students we're serving who would be unable to tell us that they're not feeling well, that we've decided to go ahead and use the thermometer strategy. Whether or not that will be a global strategy, we don't know. Okay, we're done. It is time to stop. Thank you very much. Everything will be online. Keep your questions coming. Thanks for caring so much about trying to figure out ways that we can support students and staff safely as we look at rethinking our schools. So bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.